August 14, 2004, regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors to order. First order of business is stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, the first order of business is approval of the minutes of the July 10th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Supervisors. And before we get started, I've got one comment. On the first page, the first section that is in bold print, it says that the vote made to approve the minutes was 3-1, when actually it should say 3-0, because Ms. Hertwig abstained from the motion. That does not mean she voted against it, so it passed by the 3 board members that were present. So it should say 3-0 instead of 3-1. Any other comments?
The only comment that I had was on page 3 under development proposals. To my recollection, there were no development proposals last month, and that was possibly just from the planning commission minutes.
Okay.
There's a little typo on there too, it's the last sentence. It said, the PC requested additional documentation regarding the inability to develop the site as a commercial facility. I think it's supposed to be a commercial facility, but maybe that's a moot point if we're striking the whole thing.
Well, I think the paragraph should be, yeah, I think that the move it would be to strike it. Thank you.
Sounds good.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Jorgensen, second by Supervisor Hertwig to approve the minutes of the July meeting.
I'm abstaining just because I wasn't present.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to the next order of business. And that is citizens forum for agenda items only. Now, I understand there's a few of you out here that want to make some comments to us. Please remember that each person can speak for 5 minutes. I mean, since there's so many people here particularly, we really need to adhere to 5 minutes per speaker. I would also request that if one speaker says something and you intend to say the same thing, please don't, because once we've heard it, you've heard it. You don't need to hear the same statements over and over. I understand most of you have the same feelings about stuff, but if somebody already expresses them, it's just more time consuming if everybody makes the same statements. Okay? So, go ahead.
I just have a question. So I was expressing a thought that I had, and I was told by a gentleman that you're sitting next to, well, that's just one of you. There's how many hundreds of people? So basically saying, well, I'm just one person. So it's hard to hear you say that, because are then we going to have it being told to us, well, you're just one person then?
May I suggest that certainly coming up and saying, I agree with the comments of so-and-so,
Yeah.
certainly, I think is probably what.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
what I'm saying.
You can
Okay.
certainly
Just don't regurgitate.
And really, it's
I
not
couldn't
under-
agree more, but I also want you to know that when we speak, there's probably a lot of other people who
We fully
we're speaking
understand that.
for.
And again, to be clear, nobody's being stopped from speaking, it's just,
Yeah.
respect the number of people that want to.
Yeah. We just don't want to be invalidated either. Thank
Again,
you.
free to talk.
You want to speak? No. Okay. All right, then we'll, whoever's first, please step up to the podium, give your address, and make your comments.
My name's Steve Fine, I live at 110 Black Oak Drive. I'm here probably because, for the same reason most people are here. How many, I'd like to start with a couple questions for everybody here,
Sir,
ideally.
you're-
How many people who moved
Sir,
here?
you're addressing us, we're
Okay.
not here to.
All right, well, if I'm addressing you, I want you to see if we can raise our hands. How many people moved here for the quality of life in this community? How many have moved here for the schools? How many people moved here for fracking in 300 feet from their backyards? I can't turn around, but I'm guessing, I don't see, there's no hands going up behind me. One person? Oh, okay. I don't want to intimidate you, feel free to express yourself. Okay. Bottom line is this, you have some serious business in front of you, all right? The people of this township elected you to serve our interests, not the interests of people who are basically, and I use the phrase, according to Jeff Ubinger, locusts at the zoning commission meeting. We're gonna sweep in here and basically do whatever business they do with no regard to the people who live here. There's gonna be some decisions you have to make if you didn't already make them in that executive decision, or that executive session, about whether or not you put fracking pads in this community or allow them to be built. Those people are not members of the community. We're the members of this community. We have a right to clean air. We have a right to not have this thing droning and rattling our windows 24 hours a day, like that last one that you allowed up on Cove Run Road. I don't know if you lived through that episode. I'm sure some of you got some phone calls from people. I lived through it, and a number of other people here lived through it. Crickets chirping, all right, good sound effect. But anyway, you're gonna hear some proposals that maybe give you some workarounds for this. I urge you to take them seriously. I urge you to think about the people who live here, the people whose taxes support this community. Because we're the ones that, at the end of the day, matter. I would also like to ask the question about how fracking constitutes light industry. How basically trucks rolling up and down the roads at all hours of the day and night at 10 miles an hour and making access to our homes aggravating at best, impossible at worst, constitutes quality of life. These are all things I'd like you to consider when you deliberate, and it's not just, I'm bound by law, because you're not. You're bound by your service to the people of this community. And there are workarounds within the legal framework that other people are gonna talk to you about. So please, have an open mind about this. I pray you guys haven't done the deal already. I really do.
I haven't.
I couldn't help but see that look on your face.
Oh, well, I'm not the guy you gotta work on.
I know that. I know that.
Well, let me clear up
Sure.
something, a misconception you may have.
Okay.
Executive session simply talks about legal matters. We don't make any decisions in there.
Okay.
Decisions are made at this meeting.
Okay, good.
Legal is just that we're talking about.
They're not made
stuff that-
anywhere outside of this meeting?
No.
Okay.
We need to
That's the way it
publicly
should be.
deliberate on the issue. So I don't know how these guys are gonna vote, to be
Okay.
honest. I know I'm gonna vote because I went to the planning commission and I saw what was presented and what wasn't presented.
Okay.
But we'll get to that. Anytime people wanna vote to deny, I'm sitting here, so
Yeah, I mean,
I'll take
it's,
that motion anytime.
I've worked in crisis management for years, and other related communications fields. I can tell you from experience working with natural resource companies or seeing them work. And I've been on both sides of that fence. One is never enough.
You're down to 30 seconds.
I'm sorry?
You're down to 30 seconds.
Okay, well, you send these guys to a buffet, they're gonna eat till they puke, all right? And then they're gonna leave the mess for somebody else to clean up. How's that for a metaphor? Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And anybody else want to speak?
Okay.
My name is Jeff Ubinger, Ubinger, 321 Blue Run Road. Steve made up that word locust, not me. Alright. So, I was at the last planning commission and Mr. Slagle made a very nice plea to the community at large to try to prevent contamination of our water. We talked about disposing of oil, fertilizer, using morganite, and disposing of dog feces in the proper place. And I got home and started to think, that is very, very important. The contamination from fracking is a whole nother level, and that seems to be just getting forgotten. There are tons and tons of studies. Hopefully you guys have looked at them. If not, we can supply them, and we can get experts to come in. But hundreds of studies over more than 15 years have shown contamination is without doubt from fracking. I fully understand some people believe in money and corporate profit more than they believe in the health of individuals like the people here. I find that despicable, but it's the world we live in, and that's why we're here tonight. Over 200 studies have shown the community around fracking has contaminated water, some of it radioactive. It's without a doubt. We'll show you studies if you want, let me know. Hundreds and hundreds of studies have showed that there's increased risk of asthma attacks, 7 times more likely for asthmatics within 10 miles of a fracking site to have asthma attacks going to the ER. There's a lot of crap in the air from this, it's without a doubt. There's 61 pollutants found around fracking sites that are hazardous to humans. Hopefully you know what benzene is, because that's one of them. So there's an increased risk of asthma attacks, 5 times likely for a child living within 1 mile of a fracking site of having lymphoma, that's a cancer. So there is without doubt, this is serious crap. So hopefully everyone here understands that and takes that into account. So if everyone here who's going to be voting on the important issues wants to help this community, they will dispose of their dog poop and they will make sure fracking sites are as far from humans as possible. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to address the board. My name is Dennis Hack. I live on 113 Black Oak Drive. And in general, I'm in sync with all the fracking concerns, but at this time I want to specifically address the ordinance 385, which specifies a 500-foot setback. One of the things of interest is that I'm not sure how many of you know what a fracking pad looks like. So I've taken some pictures. This is right off the Rachel Carson Trail. And to put it into perspective, the gray fence that you see in the front is approximately 4 feet high. Put things into perspective, which means those tanks are in the 40 to 50 feet area. Another interesting thing, if we look at where we stand right now to the distance to Saxonburg Boulevard, that is approximately 300 feet. So if you walk to Saxonburg Boulevard, come back about halfway, you're at 500 feet. Okay, it's not a very far distance. And that means that that structure could be sitting that far from your house. The residents of the community, as you saw, like a lot of other residents of communities, do not want this in our community or our backyard. In addition to the environmental concerns, noise concerns, and property value concerns, we have concerns about the tanker trucks. We've heard that. Put this into perspective again. Tanker truck loaded, you see driving to the fracking, weighs 60,000 pounds. As a reference, the truck that delivers your mail each day weighs 3,000. Take 20 postal trucks and stack them up high, and that's the equivalent weight of one of these fracking trucks. So imagine what that's going to do to our road and the noise and the dirt. And oh, by the way, the mailman comes once a day. How often is this fracking truck going to come? We have members of the community sitting here that consider this a crisis. We don't know if you consider it a crisis, but we do, okay? Maybe if we switched houses, you'd have a better feel why we think it's a crisis. We have people crying about what's gonna happen with their kids with the hazard. okay? They're talking about moving before the property values go down. This is a crisis. On one hand, we see this as a no-brainer. Why would you ever, not vote to say, let's advertise this in a public forum? Why would you do that? And, like, I understand, that you sometimes sit in a precarious position, but we're here tonight to ask you to change the 500 feet setback. And if you're on the fence and you're thinking of voting no, let's not go down that path, I bet this group would like to hear why. And why would you not go down that path? And I invite any of you, if you're comfortable, to just say, well, I'm on the fence because, blah. And so I would invite that. Otherwise, thank you for your attention, and appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for the comments.
And if anybody wants to speak up, okay.
Hello, Andreas Malfa, 121 Black Oak Drive. I'm gonna make it really short. There are two agenda items on the agenda tonight pertaining to number one, MPF's request for the rezoning across from Blue Run, and the second one is the setbacks, discussion of the setbacks. For the rezoning, you put in the agenda to discuss and potentially vote to advertise. My request to you is that you do not further discuss NPF's request. It was not an application. You do not have to discuss it. You deny the request if you have to discuss it, and that you do not advertise a public hearing. It is not necessary. The second agenda item is what Dennis Hack just talked about, the setbacks, and you will hear others, I hope, talking about setbacks and why we should increase them. I would request of you that you vote tonight to advertise changing the oil and gas ordinance, specifically to increase the setbacks and invoke the pending ordinance doctrine. You can't do that tonight, and if you do that tonight, that would, I don't want to use short circuit, it will accelerate the process to protect the township and to protect you and give you time to decide about it. The third request that I have is that any board member who has a vested personal interest in oil and gas industry, fracking, or oil drilling should recuse themselves from any decisions that pertain to oil and gas. Yes. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Michael Quinn. I live at 111 Isley. First, nothing to do with fracking. Thank you for the great job you've all done on holding the line on taxes. It's really appreciated. As far as the fracking goes, I mentioned this at the Planning Commission meeting last time. I can walk to the Blue Run area in less than 15 minutes, and I can walk to the other one on the other side of the turnpike, opposite the camp. I can walk from my house to there in 15 minutes also. The biggest concern I have, because I don't have a lot of knowledge about the science, but I do have the experience of dealing with the noise the last time it went on at the Miller Farm. And I read an article at that time, because I had no idea what was going to happen with the noise. And it was a woman in upstate New York. And in the article, she said it got to the point where they couldn't tell when the sound was literally on or off. The din was a constant din. And I said to my wife, I don't buy it. Well, I owe that lady an apology, because after a while, we couldn't tell whether they were fracking up there, whether the noise was going on or not. But there were many, many times we had to have our windows shut, because we face Emerling Park, and up on the hill was Miller. I don't know if it would be the same with the locations of the one on 910, because I walked there and it's below, okay, it's closer to the turnpike. But my biggest concern would be having to go through that ordeal might be too much, but an incredible inconvenience. The noise was ridiculous and the noise was every day. And the other thing was, I remember talking to people in West Deer about the traffic of the trucks. That's when I was teaching. There were many occasions in the morning when, I mean, I could walk to Dorseyville from my house, the middle school, if I wanted to. But there were a bunch of days when I would go to school and I would get stuck on the bridge, the Emmerling Bridge in between the rugby field and Emmerling Park. And I had fracking trucks in front of me, and I had fracking trucks behind me, and I had fracking trucks next to me. I just sat there. So we didn't know that was gonna happen then. It was the great unknown. But now we do, unless they've made incredible advancements in decreasing the noise level. But that is quality of life, that is. So please take that into consideration. The noise level that everybody's gonna be experiencing for the most part, again, because it's pretty much the same area. I don't mean this in a sarcastic, wise guy way, but I wonder how many of you who have the ability to make this decision that will impact our lives, how many of you were directly impacted by what happened at the Miller Farm as far as the trucks and the noise, and how many of you will or have family members that will be directly impacted by this time. I would really appreciate it if you would take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, Vanessa Summeroff, 119 Black Oak Drive. I'm speaking today regarding the proposed changes to Ordinance 385 for increased setbacks for the health, safety, and well-being of the residents of Indiana Township. What I'll be providing you with today is an opinion letter from John Smith, partner at Smith & Butts, and an expert in land use law who has argued and won cases for townships in the PA Supreme Court, and whom I engaged for consultation. With the limited time, I'm just going to highlight some portions of the letter for you. So, he states, in his legal opinion, the current setbacks are deficient and fail to protect the rights of Indiana Township residents. Additionally, the setbacks do not sufficiently protect public health and safety as required in Section 601 and 604 of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. This may be remedied by amending the zoning ordinance to increase the oil and gas wellhead setbacks from protected structures to a greater distance. He also states, zoning ordinance must be enacted for the health, safety, and general welfare of the community, and their provisions, including setbacks, must advance those purposes. This is in accordance with Section 601 of the MPC, which specifically grants authority to municipalities to enact zoning ordinances in order to protect and promote health, safety, and general welfare of residents. The promotion of oil and gas development is a private interest rather than one that serves communities. And as such, it is not a proper constitutional basis for a zoning ordinance. Additionally, the mere 200-foot wellhead setback from property lines and 500-foot setback from protected structures in Indiana Township undermines the requirements of the MPC because oil and gas operations pose unique health risks to the surrounding environments. Countless environmental studies have also recognized that oil and gas drilling produces many toxic pollutants known as carcinogens, yet the existing setbacks have clearly failed to consider the distances to which these known carcinogens may travel or affect Indiana Township citizens. At any hearing for approval, oil and gas applicants will use the 500-foot setback as a shield from needing to demonstrate their proposed use would not have detrimental effects, as once the township implements a setback, it presumptively establishes the distance is protective of public health. Some municipalities see the Oil and Gas Act requirement of 500-foot minimum setback as evidence of a safe distance. But Pennsylvania's Supreme Court has rejected this notion in recognizing the difference in topography, wind speed, direction in the different parts of Pennsylvania. Many municipalities have increased the setbacks to 1,000 feet or more, consistent with their duty to protect public health. Additionally, he states the township can expeditiously amend the ordinance. Here, amending the oil and gas wellhead setback distance in section 502B2N of the zoning ordinance would only constitute a text amendment, and thus the procedures for amending may be carried out by Indiana Township expeditiously. And pending ordinance doctrines can be enacted if there has been sufficient public declaration and current limitations regarding pending ordinance status do not apply to the setback changes. In his opinion, a proposed ordinance is considered pending when there has been sufficient public declaration of an intent to amend an existing zoning ordinance. Courts have sought to limit the purview of the pending ordinance doctrine, but the limitations are inapplicable here because they are specific to subdivision and land use. By contrast, the Indiana Township oil and gas development is not an application for land use development. It is not a use that is permitted by right and is only authorized as conditional use. In sum, an application for conditional use or special exception for oil and gas development is not an application for land development, and accordingly, Indiana Township can seek pending ordinance status after it has resolved and declared publicly its intent to amend the ordinance. In summary, he states, based on the foregoing, it is my legal opinion that the oil and gas wellhead setbacks required by Indiana Township zoning ordinance 385, section 502B2N are deficient. Indiana Township is obligated to protect the environmental rights of its residents, and increasing the wellhead setbacks from protected structures will accomplish that. This amendment process may be completed as swiftly and efficiently as Indiana Township desires. Following your review of this opinion, should you have any questions or concerns, please contact him. And I did provide you with a copy of the letter and his contact information, which I'll give to you when I'm done talking. So, in sum, I request that you vote tonight to advertise a public hearing to change the setbacks within the oil and gas ordinance and establish a pending ordinance doctrine through this declaration. How much more time do I have?
24 seconds.
Okay, so I'll end it there, but I will hand you the letters. I provided you with actually six copies, as I would recommend that you also provide it to your solicitor as well.
It's sitting next to Mr. Newman, so.
Can I give it
Yes,
directly to
please,
him?
yeah.
Okay, I didn't know, I think so.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Justin McCarthy, address is 307 Blue Run Road. For 8 years, I worked in the oil and gas industry, focused on acquiring oil and gas rights and resolving title issues for oil and gas companies throughout Pennsylvania and eastern Ohio. And for part of that time, I worked exclusively for Range Resources in western Pennsylvania. I mentioned this for context in regard to my.
Speak into the mic a little bit, it's hard to hear.
I mentioned this for context in regard to my following remarks, as I have some unique and well-informed insights into the oil and gas industry. There is no reason for this Board of Supervisors to adjust the municipality's zoning to permit more light industrial use within the township than that which already is permitted. The correct and right amount of light industrial property already exists. The subject piece of property is not contiguous to any other light industrial property, and so this would be spot zoning by the board, which could be appealable grounds to escalate this matter to the courts if necessary. The board should not undo very recently redone zoning maps. While MPF claims that they will seek to put a well on an alternative piece of property if the subject parcel is not rezoned, there is nothing stopping them from coming in back in the near or far future and seeking to put a well site on the other piece of property then. While the subject laterals on the rezoned property may turn southeast, they could turn the laterals on the other piece of property northwest. I know that this board would like the focus to be only on the zoning change from commercial to light industrial. However, MPF, the petitioner before this esteemed board, has inextricably linked the gas well issue with the rezoning issue to make them one and the same. MPF's entire basis to rezone the subject properties because they have directly informed this board during the proceedings regarding their petition that MPF wants to drill a gas well on the subject property instead of attempting to drill a gas well on another piece of property that is appropriately zoned at this time for the subject use in question. That other property is being used by MPF as leverage to strong-arm our community into permitting them to have a use of the subject property that is improper now and which should remain improper. After all, the zoning map was only recently updated within the last few years. The property on the table for rezoning is only about a mile from the Dorseyville Middle School and Hartwood Elementary School campus, where roughly 1,600 children within the broader community spend the majority of their time from the age of 5 when they start kindergarten until they are 14 and entering high school. Additionally, the property that is being petitioned to be rezoned is contiguous to Emerald Park, where various children and adults play and attend sporting events. It is across the street from a daycare center with children up to 5 years old and a very popular summer camp where hundreds are bused in and from around the county.
There was a recent study dated August 2023 conducted by the University of Pittsburgh for the Pennsylvania Department of Health Bureau of Epidemiology, which found that children who were repeatedly within 1 mile of an unconventional gas well were 5 to 7 times more likely to develop lymphoma when compared to children who lived outside of an area with wells. Again, MPF, the petitioner here, has inextricably linked the gas well with the rezoning issue question, as such gas well was introduced by MPF as their reason for seeking the rezoning. In addition to huge populations of children, Deer Creek runs right through and around this subject property. Deer Creek is a significant tributary of the Allegheny River and a very popular fishing grounds that is stocked by trout by the state. During my time in the oil and gas industry, and on occasions I follow it currently, the place for the highest likelihood of contamination to the surrounding areas at the well site. No well site should be placed on a piece of property so close to Deer Creek. As evidenced recently just this spring with storm surges and heavy rainfall, that area floods routinely, and trees were uprooted and structures destroyed. When that happens again, if there's a well site on that piece of property, it will wreak havoc on Deer Creek and the fish in Emerling Park, and it will be devastating costs and environmental repercussions imposed on the township. Range Resources MPF do not care about such repercussions because the fines imposed by the EPA and other agencies are a pittance compared to the money that they stand to make from a successful well. There is no such thing as an altruistic oil and gas company. I know as I work intimately with the land departments of Range Resources and others as they plan their well pads and units and I negotiated their dealings. They have suggested this property is a better alternative for the community than an alternative piece of property which is already zoned appropriately for light industrial use. And they seem to threaten that they would otherwise use the already zoned light industrial site. The desire for this rezoning is not in the best interest of our community and the constituents within it. It is ultimately an economic decision and calculation on MTF and Range Resources' part. It is a cost-benefit analysis. A benefit for the gas company, their executives and shareholders, and at the cost of our community and the cost of our children's health. For the aforementioned reasons, I humbly ask this Board of Supervisors to deny MPF's application and petition to rezone the subject parcel of land. After all, Indiana Township's own planning commission voted to not recommend the rezoning.
Hi, my name is Katie Grashow. I live at 408 Kleiner Court. I just want to take a minute. When you hear the risk that our children, our babies, will face, all dependent on your choice, on your decisions, and some of you aren't even looking at me right now. I've been a teacher since I was 20, so that's 25 years. And to live in a community and be a mother to my 3 children, and to be committed to the children that I have birthed and that I take care of, I find that a sacred duty. When I am responsible for people's well-being, our children's well-being, we share that, you and I. You share that commitment and that sacred duty to care for and to be responsible for us and all of the people that we represent, whether it's my nonverbal child that's at home being fed by my husband right now, who has epilepsy and who has hundreds and hundreds of seizures a day sometimes, who has more dignity in her pinky than people who put profit over people's health, who were put in those positions by the same people they are supposed to represent. When we first moved to this community, we wanted a green space. We wanted a place for our children to thrive. And this is where it was. We found it. We thought we found it. And then the last time I was standing in this room, we were fighting against the fracking that the board, many of you the same people, did not listen to the people on this side of this table. I remember being told by one of our neighbors who lived in Osmowell, saying, "Oh my gosh, it will be so wonderful living out there. People really take care of each other out there. People really take care of each other." Will you be a person who takes care of the next guy? I'm not looking at my notes. 1 mile, that risk of lymphoma. I just desperately plead for you to think of not just our babies, but your own, and any child that you've ever cared for, the kids you grew up with, you as a young kid. Would you want the adults in your life to do that to you or the next guy? I just hope that we can work with each other. We're not saying don't frack ever. Just do it responsibly. Do it in a way that doesn't affect our children, in a way that would be extremely detrimental. And we all know it. I hope that you will take care of the next guy. And that's what you are put in your jobs to do. And we all know that there are logistical, words and phrases and, zoning ordinances and all these big words that we could get lost in. And you could do tit for tat. But at the end of the day, as the gentleman who used to work for an oil and gas company made it very clear, it's about people over profit or profit over people. And what will you decide? And will you be able to look at the children in the face who you decide against if you decide that? And I hope for your sake, and I hope for all of our children's sake, you decide what's right for them. And that you can look at yourself in the mirror at night. And that you can have the dignity that my child does when she's having hundreds of seizures a day. And will you have the bravery? She's not the only one, as I was told earlier. I'm only one person, but I speak for a lot of people in my community, the elderly people who weren't able to be here today, and also our children. And I'm sorry I don't have statistics, but we all have hearts. And I hope that's what we can connect on, and I hope that we can connect on common sense. Thank you.
Catherine has 216 Rear Table. I just have two quick questions. One is the parcel of land that we're talking about. I looked it up on Allegheny County website just an hour ago, and it said it is owned by D&D Supply Inc. And I tried to Google that, and it doesn't exist. So my question is, do you know who owns D&D Supply Inc?
The ball does.
The who?
The ball does.
The ball does own it.
The ball.
Okay. Does that company still exist? Okay, they bought it in 1970. Okay, so the answer is the ball. Okay. Second question is, there was one other meeting I was here and they said, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you change it to light commercial, light industrial, and you let, then it can get the fracking and it's a Pennsylvania law, but somebody else can come do it too once you change that thing. And is that true? I don't recall it would probably be in some minutes, but I was here when somebody said that.
I think what they said was, is there's no contract, I believe it was the planning commission, I think what was said is there's no contract zoning, so if you change the zoning ordinance, then anybody can come in and do anything, it wouldn't necessarily be this particular entity or anyone else. It's once a zone changes, there's no guarantee what happens.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's very important if you do change it, and plus you're giving up some commercial property, how it's zoned now. And if you look on the map with those colors, there isn't a whole lot that's commercial. You said there's like 3 areas. And so I would vote not to change. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Ariel Zitch. I live at 103 Spring Forest Drive, Pittsburgh, PA, obviously. So there's just a few things that I think may be in your consideration for this rezoning. I'm going to speak from wearing my economic development hat. It's why I'm invested in public education. It's why I moved here. It's why I want my kids to live in this state. Economic development is that kind of machine that gives us resources to feed our families, gives us security, gives us the reassurance that our kids are going to have great schools, that our buildings are going to be run safely and well and effectively, and that our roads are going to be drivable, right? This is not the path to economic sustainability and economic development for our community. because it undermines most of the engines of economic mobility. It undermines our ability for our kids to get a safe and healthy education. It undermines our ability to keep our community safe from chronic illness and disability. It undermines our ability to sell real estate, which is the engine that powers our public schools. I know we don't like taxes, but our taxes are high because we believe in our schools. We have some of the best schools, we do have the best schools in the state. We have some of the best schools in the nation. And the second that it gets out that our schools have a fracking well that's poisoning our children within a mile radius of that school, that competitiveness, our ability to hire teachers is gonna go down, our ability to get revenue is gonna go down because property values are going to plummet. And that's been shown statewide in other fracking communities. You can look at industrial boomtown research. There's a whole department of Penn State that does this, and they go in and they watch what happens to everyone's money. And it does not go up. Now, I think it's important as a school director, I'm an elected official. I was elected by majority in a competitive election, and that's important when I say the next few things I'm gonna say, which is that as an elected official, I have an obligation to take my votes without bias and without prejudice. I have colleagues on my board who I respect deeply, who are all deeply committed to our schools and who are residents of the communities that they serve, who are parents of children in those communities. When their spouse is a volunteer basketball coach on their agenda, when they have even the slightest hint there may be any conflict of interest, we recuse ourselves. Sometimes it's comical. Because I'm like, you know what, like, if your wife's a basketball coach, like, I don't care. You know, go ahead and make the vote for the personnel item on the agenda, right? You have someone on your board of supervisors who is refusing to recuse himself from a vote that he will personally and directly financially benefit from.
Who is it?
Who?
I will name him. It's Darren Crowley. I don't know if I'm saying his name right.
He's in the phone.
Great. I demand that you recuse yourself from this vote. It is inappropriate that you are voting on an item when by name, by line, in public documents that any person in this room can access, we can see that you are voting in your own interest and it is a financial one.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Carl.
I think that's something that we have to confront first, Darren, sorry. I mean, that is a huge issue. And no matter where we go with this, it'll delegitimize. If people wanna go and give MPF the ability to rewrite our map without providing any economic analysis, which, you know, at least school director Zitch provided us something, they provided nothing. So at some point in time, I know a lot of these people care, but what can Darren do? Because I have seen the documents, that's a financial interest, that if these wells start flooding, or start flowing, he gets the rents and royalties. I mean, that has to happen, because if we go and move forward with this, we are just putting our whole township at risk for flushing more money down the toilet to fight our own citizens against their stated interests.
Maybe
So
he
we-
could
Now,
put,
why didn't
maybe
he
he
step
could.
forward?
Hey, please, he's has the floor right now.
Okay, why didn't he step
Sir,
forward before
Sir,
this?
sir, he has the floor.
I'm sorry.
Maybe he could put the money towards
Maybe
children's
you could wait till your turn to
We
speak.
do have,
medical bills.
because we do have to like abide by the rules, you know, Mayor Khan's right. I don't know. I mean, we have our duty to present what our assets are and whether we could financially benefit from these things. I had mineral rights on land that I bought by my house to create a buffer from all this kind of nonsense. I let them lapse. I don't have any stake. And I can say that in front of everybody. I don't have any stake in fracking. And we can all, that's a huge part of our economy in Pennsylvania. I'm not making a judgment about people who benefit from it, but there's rules of conflict of interest, and it's an objective standard if I'm right. I mean, it's what the Pascal case where you have to have, if there's an objective sense of bias, that's the standard. And if people see that you own property that could pay off if you vote for a particular development to move forward, that's slam dunk conflict of interest. So we've got to confront that before we move forward. Because how can we vote? I mean, it would be 2-2. I know what I'm voting. I take the vote right now to deny. I don't even know why we're doing this, to be honest, because the Plan Commission did their job. They asked for some economic data and nothing was provided. So I think in the interest of having some sort of respect for the people who took the time here, we need to start drilling down. pun intended, these issues and figure out what's going on with the conflict of interest and whether anybody here really wants to let somebody who has an outside stake redraw our map just because they come in and threaten to do something worse than what they're claiming is a good deal for us. So what is the conflict of interest issue that we have to
You said a
nail
lot
down?
of things there, Mr. Mayor.
I do, sorry,
So,
pent up.
You know, you can't, you're asking to break down about 10 different things. So
Let's
first,
just
let me-
conflict of interest.
First, I'm sorry, yeah, I won't speak to this, but I'll try not. Okay, first, the reason that we're doing this is because you have public comment on the agenda for items on the agenda and no decisions have been made, right? So in order for the public to advise the elected officials of their opinions, that's why you have public comment. That's why people are making the public comments, right?
Sure.
Okay, so that's the answer to that question. Okay. As far as this, the items on the agenda tonight, the item on the agenda is a zoning map amendment. That is not specifically tied, so it's a broader issue, right? So there's not a direct development. I don't know anything about I have no information on anybody who owns anything. I don't know anything about it. But I'm saying that, you don't even have, this is just to schedule a public hearing.
I think you should, Herb, you're a lawyer,
I
you should
haven't,
know if we have.
how would I, I don't research everybody.
Well, somebody should
have
hold.
it.
I have it here if you need it.
You know now. You know now.
Please.
This is our
allow people
lives.
to speak.
Excuse me?
This is our lives.
Yeah, so,
But you're joking
Ma'am.
about it.
He has the
when
floor.
there's no joke. Everything's very serious here. I'm
You
not
don't,
joking.
you're, oh, okay, great.
I'm just I'm not joking. Okay, so what I'm saying is, the only item on the agenda is to schedule a public hearing on that. That's not an item that would reflect that. So,
But you have to admit, that's a first
Well,
step towards something that
I
can
don't-
financially benefit.
I
the
don't know,
board.
I don't have the information I did address it, Mr. Mayor. It's the first I'm hearing of any of it. I don't know. So, I certainly can.
Why didn't you ask that question way back when?
I mean, I'm on the board of supervisors, so if I get too overly involved at the plan commission level, I let them do their job. And they did their jobs. And I didn't want to interrupt that process, and I have full confidence in what they did. They unanimously voted to deny this. And we don't have any documentation that proves that this is at all good for Indiana Township. So that's why I said I wasn't making light of the fact that everybody has the right to come and make a comment, but I think most people here do not want our zoning map to be changed a la carte for somebody coming in who wants to make money off it. And I'm just saying, to benefit everybody, I'm ready to vote on it. I'm ready to make a motion to deny the zoning map change proposed by MPF. But they have to take the floor at some point, and I don't know how we would have to move the agenda. I don't know if they're making a presentation, but to me, that was open and shut. They didn't provide any documentation. And I just didn't want to interrupt the planning commission because I didn't want to seem biased. But how can I be biased against somebody who's presented nothing about what is good for our township? To me, it's just common sense.
Well, John, for the record, I do want to make one comment.
Go ahead.
Ms. Bolton, I just want to be sure that you reflect these minutes accurately as usual. Thank you.
You put the speaker near the.
He asked that he be reflected accurately. I think it's a veiled threat that things are being said that maybe hurt people's feelings, but we have to make sure the law is being enforced properly and everybody discloses whether they have an interest in more fracking in Indiana Township. That's all I want to know. Darren, why don't you speak to that issue though? I mean, do you
Thank
have
you.
minimal rights that could start the cash flow if this moves forward? Do you want to speak to that? Go ahead.
I think I've made my comment.
Why don't you make them to us?
Yeah, that's a yes.
Hey, whoa, please. This is supposed to be an organized meeting, not just a shouting contest. Please show a little decorum, please.
But that's the same response we get from MPF. Nobody's telling us anything. So if this moves forward, that's extremely suspect and disturbing that nobody wants to say who owns whom and who owns what, and nobody wants to say who's really benefiting from this, but we know it's not the township taxpayers and citizens, because if it was, they would actually present us evidence of it, and they haven't. So, we can move forward. whatever people wanna do, but I know what I'm gonna do.
Are we through talking?
Go.
No, we can keep
Go ahead.
Go
No,
ahead.
you go ahead.
Take my 5 minutes to walk.
He'll take
Hi, my name is Catherine Myhofer. I live at 121 Black Oak Drive. And I just wanted to come back to the setback change from 500 to 2,500 that my husband was addressing earlier. And
Speak to the microphone, Karen.
okay, sorry, I am. Okay, so I wanted to come back to the setback changes. And the township does have light industrial and also residential estate space near West Deer and Fraser Township lines that would not preclude fracking. There's no reason not to increase these setbacks, and it does not require the most attractive, best fit, or the most perfect land that they desire, only that there be space possible, and that would still be possible with setbacks. Please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Elisa Weiss, 134 Dennis Drive. And I suppose in the interest of being brief and not repeating a lot of things, I would want to respectfully echo many of the points that Andreas Nyhofer had already made, and also agree with many of the other excellent points that have been brought before you already. I'm asking that you deny the MPF management request for the zoning map amendment. I think when community members in 2018 were clear in the ordinance that residents wanted such a highly industrial process to be located only in essentially highly industrial zones. And I think we should not kid ourselves by thinking that this is a light industrial process for the materials that are involved and the potentials for contamination. This is significantly industrial, regardless of the absence of a factory or huge, football fields and machinery and so forth. Redesignation would potentially open other areas in the township to such activities against the wishes of the residents, I believe. The purpose of the ordinance is to be protective of the residents, not to specify a zone to be accessible to redesignation by a few steps of reconsideration as individuals conceive of alternative, more potentially dangerous uses in the future. Secondly, I'd like to comment on the reconsideration of the setbacks. I think with the numbers of meetings that a number of us have been to, the health aspects have been, it's almost as though those have been said and we don't want to reiterate them because of taking extra time and so forth, but I think that they cannot be overemphasized. And I think Katie specified that very clearly in her impassioned discussion. And also I would say at this point, several years later, given the emerging information on the dangers associated with unconventional oil and gas development, I think it's, I would once again agree with Andreas Myhofer that it would be wise to actually, if it is at all possible, invoke this pending doctrine ordinance to say that this point of reconsideration of more protective setbacks from any oil and gas operations be begun tonight. And even as recently as an August 2022 article that came from the folks who are the scientists at the Yale School of Public Health, I believe, their study focused on children with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, the most common type of cancer in children. Now, we're not just talking about this, but we're also have also to talk about the health issues that people in the vicinity of these operations experience, from nosebleeds to headaches to rashes to asthma to sleep disturbances. And if any of you have experienced sleep disturbances, you can know how deeply that derails and causes or contributes to the decompensation of multiple other medical problems. And that can not be underestimated, especially in a very young population or an elderly population, not to discredit people in the middle ages or not in that specific age range. Those things just cannot be discredited in any way. And those have been, observed in communities in southwestern Pennsylvania and in other communities across the country significantly. So in this Environmental Health Perspectives article from August 2022, they conclude that our study suggests that children living near unconventional oil and gas development have increased odds of developing ALL as assessed by multiple metrics, including a novel metric representing deep drinking water exposure. The magnitude of the association was greatest among children living within 2 kilometers of UOGD and exposed during the perinatal period. This research adds to a growing body of work documenting adverse health effects associated with unconventional oil and gas development, particularly among children, and provides additional support for more stringent setback policies and other public health measures to reduce exposures to UOGD. So thank you very much for your consideration and your time.
Thank you for your time. Anyone else want to address the board?
You go ahead.
Okay.
It'd take me 5 minutes to walk up there, so, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Well,
I haven't been accused too many times in my life of being obtuse.
Can I bring the microphone to you?
No.
You can try, I don't know how far it's gonna get.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Let me try and bring this to you.
Okay. I have in my hand 39 people.
Looks like it's long enough.
Thank you. I have in my hand 39 people that signed this before I did. I handed some sheets off to Jeff. And you're supposed to check if you're against rezoning. I put a question mark there in my head, and I checked against it. Frankly, I don't know what we're talking about. I don't know what we're talking about tonight. Where is this pad going to be? That you're fighting 500 feet here, 500 feet there, it's gonna affect all your kids. Where is the pad we're talking about? Which one is it? That can't be too hard a question. Nobody knows where the pad that I'm saying, where is it? Is it down in Emerling Park? Is that the pad we're talking about? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Close to.
I thought that was already taken care of by the land trust. They tell me that the one that's up above where Ridge is. At any rate, if the pad doesn't go in where we're talking about, where's it going to go? Where's it going to go? In the industrial park, the new sign that's up there? Ghaznavi's Industrial Park? Is that where it's going to go? Yes or no? Folks, come on, help me out here.
Nobody knows.
Yes.
Nobody knows? He said yes. I think that's where it's gonna go, because someone earlier addressed the fact that they're holding a hammer over our heads. If they don't go down there, they're going to go some other place. And I'll tell you this right now. There's nobody in this room who'll be more affected with their personal life than yours truly if it goes up here, upstream from a place where I have 600 kids coming, where I have my grandsons playing, and I live there. None of you. If I'm going to vote, if it's going to go any place, it was going to go down below me. that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
All right? I'm for it. If the alternative is they're going up there, and I think that's a bunch of baloney. You've got the same conditions that are going to exist wherever they put it. I'm for fracking. We shouldn't have to frack in this country, if you study your politics. But it should be done where it's not gonna affect people. And there's millions of places in this country where you can frack. I don't care if anybody's gonna make money on it. God bless him. Is he still on the phone? I got my tin can out. All right, that's all I want to say. Now we're talking about going down by Emmeline Park. That's what we're talking about?
Yes.
You say you don't know, Dennis. We are?
Don't ask me.
But that doesn't stop
Well, why
it
doesn't stop what?
It doesn't stop from the pallet site either, is what the, so it depends on the
Yes, they
rezoning, it
can.
could be both.
They can do both, they can do a lot more. Why don't they go up there? Why I'm confused, there was an article, and I asked the folks here, my good friends, what about the ad, the article, huge article, was on the front page of the Pittsburgh Tribune. Did you read that? What did it say? It said that Indiana Township people have stopped the fracking down there. Maybe we didn't. They say they bought the property up above, the Miller property. Is that right? Huh?
It's the Miller property, but they're trying to get donations to make it reach.
Donations, yeah, they've got $2 million grants. Now they want each of us to cover $150,000. That was in the article. How many people don't know about that? That's why I'm confused. I'm gonna sit down. I got 30 seconds. I'm gonna keep on talking. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry.
Okay, well, let's get the mic, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. My name is Maria Fine. I live at 110 Black Oak Drive. Jay, I disagree with you.
Okay, that's all right.
I'm against fracking. You're for it. And I also disagree because no one should be benefiting financially off of our health. I'm talking to the phone right now. He should recluse himself from the voting. Get Mr. Slagle in to vote in place of him. Get someone else if you need 5 people. Who benefits? At the last meeting I was at, the attorney was saying it benefits the township. He kept saying it over and over. What is the benefit to this township other than Mr. Crowley making money? Can you tell me what the benefit is?
I don't, an MPF budget. So I don't know. I don't know why.
Then if you guys don't know, you should just say no, forget it, don't come into this township.
Happy to say no.
What is the benefit? You should know if you're gonna vote on this.
I think it's just scaring people that we're gonna do something worse if we don't give in to this, but that's a slippery slope. You start,
What could be worse than the fracking?
well, they've talked about fracking.
More fracking.
And this is what's confusing, is that there's a proposed site that's a little closer to the Black Oak. And we're talking about redrawing the map as some sort of favor to the community, to do it someplace a little bit more discreet, but as many people have referenced, I mean, it's in the air, it's in the water, and there's no guarantee that if they don't pump everything out of this rezoned spot, they can go back to the pallet factory. They can find any. If you start messing with that zoning map, everywhere in this township is at risk, because they can keep going back to that.
Why do they keep coming to this township?
They
They're
must
from
have.
Cranberry, go drill out there. We don't want it. We're scared of the health issues.
I don't want it.
Please, guys, when you vote, please consider our health. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we get your name?
My name?
Yes, I didn't compare it.
Your name?
My name?
Yes.
Maria Fine, 110 Black Oak Drive.
She was having
I didn't catch it. Okay, great.
Hakesacoin, 323 Blue Run Road. I'm the president of the Walnut Woods Homeowners Association. I'm not here to represent the Homeowners Association or speak on behalf of the Homeowners Association, but since this came on the agenda recently, and since it came on the agenda months ago, I have never heard more from our homeowners about anything, period, than this issue. And I've just been completely bombarded with people who want this to stop and who thought it already stopped, but it hasn't stopped. So I'm against it, let me just say that. But I'm also a little confused here because, I mean, there is a mechanism whereby they could file, this isn't a request for a variance, is it?
It's a
This is
zoning.
not a request for a variance.
Right. They could have filed a request for a variance. They could have sought a variance for this property, and then it would have had to go through the steps before the zoning hearing board. There must be a hearing in front of the zoning hearing board, and then there must be a hearing in front of this council. But that's not what they did.
That's not quite the
Okay.
variance process, right? But you're right, that there would have been a variance hearing in front of the zoning hearing board for the use, and eventually would have had to come back for a separate application.
But there's a procedure, there's
Yes, you're
steps that they have to comply with. If they comply with those steps, and if the request is improperly denied, then they have a right to appeal that. Is that right, or more or less? I mean, Mr. Furman?
That's fine.
Yes, okay, thanks. And that's not what they've done here. They're coming in, asking us to change our ordinance, our zoning map, and our laws, and it's an entirely discretionary request by this board, right? It's discretionary. Do we want our laws to change the use of this piece of property to industrial? Do we want our laws to change to accommodate one new fracking site in our community? And I think the answer to that is no. So if the vote is to approve to advertise for a public hearing, that means that we're interested. We're interested in hearing about this proposal to rezone. We're interested in hearing about a new fracking site in our community. And this isn't a variance request. There aren't the legal steps. There aren't the legal hurdles. This is a choice that we are making as a community. A choice to change our laws to accommodate a new fracking pad. And I think the answer is no.
Hello, I'm Dawn Wong, and I live at 4040 Park Place. And I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to come up and speak today. I know that a lot of people have already talked about this zoning change. And so I'm asking, what is the benefit to changing something where the best zoning that you all and the zoning commission have determined is already set in place, and that is reviewed at regular intervals, I would assume, or should be. And so if we are going to change a zoning law, again, I would say the same thing. Why this place? Who benefits? Why would we choose something that is so close to Dorseyville Middle School and elementary schools and homes and children? We do understand that there are risks, of course, for leukemia, lymphoma, but a lot of those chemicals are also endocrine disruptors. And so they can have significant and have already been shown to have a play in potential fertility in the future. And so even beyond all of those other things, we want to promote families, we want to promote our community. In fact, Dorseyville Middle School was selected as a 2024 School of Distinction, the first ever in Pennsylvania. So if anything, I would want to support such a wonderful opportunity for families and those children in the future. But beyond that, I do think that, you know, I have nothing against anyone or how they operate for their business, what they choose to do, what they choose to buy. But as a physician, everything that I do that takes money from anyone, and I mean a cup of coffee, you are free to look up Dawn Wong and the Sunshine Act, and you can see every dollar I have ever taken from anyone. And I do actually do research. I apply for grants. I am trying to solve problems that are very difficult to solve. But I don't want anybody to think that what I'm doing in any way would benefit myself, because that is not what it's for. I could certainly buy and do other things, that would be fine. But I do think that this is a situation where people's health is equally at risk, and the community is equally at risk, and that people who have a conflict of interest, it happens, but then they should not directly be able to affect the lives and the health of the community that we live in. And so I do think that, and I'm not saying that anybody would want to do that, but I do think that would be an unethical decision to make, just as if I were to do that for patients or people that I care for. Thank you.
Good evening. Brian Merritt, can you hear me? 512 Sandra Lane. I moved here several years ago, about 9 years ago now, with my wife, Nancy, and our oldest son, Garrison, who's 10. And when we moved here, we welcomed our youngest son, Alex. And I have to be frank with you all. Had a fracking pad been on that site when we were going to purchase this home, and we searched everywhere for a home that we wanted to purchase. We were looking for a good school district and a great neighborhood, and we found both. But frankly, we would never have purchased that property with its proximity to a fracking pad, because that's what they've expressed succinctly and clearly to you, that is absolutely what they will do with this property. And you've heard from numerous people about the potential health effects. So what keeps me up at night is, did I move to a place that could potentially have environmental hazards in the air, the water, or the soil that could lead to my child contracting or having cancer, lymphoma? That keeps me up at night. I'll be frank, it was really hard to work today, knowing that this stuff was on the agenda. I couldn't focus. I was wrapped up in what would I say? I'm not even reading from my notes anymore because I'm improvising. And I'm trying to be calm and provide you with thoughts and opinions that I hope you will take into account. But frankly, I think you've heard that, and from what I understand, I don't see any reason why you need to vote to advertise this at all. The Planning Commission said deny, unanimously. MPF failed to provide the documentation that the Planning Commission requested so that they could take into account their considerations, their opinions, their thoughts. They failed to do that. That speaks to them as a company and their ability to be a good partner to this community. Not the Board of Supervisors, the community. So I strongly recommend that you deny their request for a public hearing. I don't see why it's necessary. If I'm wrong, fine, so be it. But it just doesn't, you have a planning commission that said unanimously deny, recommend to deny. The other item, which speaks to the health and safety issues, is the setbacks. They're woefully inadequate. They're woefully inadequate to protect our children. They're insufficient. They need to be changed. You can vote tonight to advertise for a hearing around that. And that would be the right thing to do for our community. You've heard about the potential issues with property value. If you're concerned with the financial stability of this township, fracking and any benefit that might come to the township, I'm going to ignore comments made about potential conflicts of interest. If there's any money coming to the township, you should look to see what the detrimental impact to property values will be, and the tax revenues realized by both the township and, frankly, the school district. Because now you're impacting not just Indiana Township residents, but the surrounding communities that send their children to Hartwood and Dorsey Middle School. You have to consider all those things. They've presented you with nothing. Nothing. There's tomes of studies out there that speak to the health impacts. Tomes. Take them into account. Consider them. And the last thing I will say is, I work for a privately held company. I work with municipalities across the country. And one thing that's always ingrained in me, anytime I meet with a township official, is the optics of the discussions that I have with that township official, be it a Board of Supervisors member, city commissioner, somebody that is on staff. The optics of what you say and do, how that can be perceived, is incredibly important. It's incredibly important. Our trust in you is influenced by those optics. And the discussions around this date back well over, I think, into last year. I don't know exactly when discussions started around the Black Oak site, but it's been more than a year. But now this is the time when it's coming to light. They're asking you to make a Sophie's choice between two properties. There's no guarantee that they won't develop the other one, or somebody else will come in. I mean, I just don't understand why you have to entertain this request for advertising when you have the planning commission said deny, and you absolutely should open up the oil and gas ordinance and address the setback issue. Thank you.
Ron Frank, Heathergate Drive. Is that on? Ron Frank, Heathergate Drive. I will not address fracking in a general sense, but I would like to address fracking at that site, which I think is inappropriate. We have about 3,000 students in Fox Chapel schools. The Hartwood students will spend 9 years on that campus, kindergarten through 8th grade. The rest of the district will spend a minimum of 3 years on that site. And we have, everybody here has talked about, we live in the community, it's gonna be a day-to-day thing with us, et cetera. But those students are, we have a choice of living here or not. Those students are required to attend the schools at that site. And many of them have special needs, many of them already have health issues. And I'm not even addressing staff members who are required to be at those 2 schools on that campus. Many of those also have health issues. So that, please keep in mind your duty of care to the rest of the school district who attend in our area. Thank you. If I could make one other point. I think we should quit asking for addresses, maybe a region or whatever. The school district, for public comments, we deleted the request for addresses because, to be honest with you, we had people approaching people's houses, et cetera. So I'd like you to consider that, you know, maybe what region you're from, whatever, but I think name should be enough. Thank you.
Are there any other comments?
Can I reclaim my 30 seconds? I just want to ask one question. I have a corporation, Whiteville Inc., traded as Camp Deerfield. I pay taxes. How much money have we brought in to the school district, et cetera, from Ridge and from this multi-million, hundreds of millions of dollars? How much money are we gonna bring in? Do we have any idea?
No.
You should know how much money we get from Ridge. They're a corporation. They have to pay taxes.
Thank you.
Oh, rain! I told you I was on this.
Betty Owens, 109 Verner Drive. Thank you for taking these comments tonight. Clearly, there's a lot of interest in this particular topic, that people have come out on it. I really want to speak to more of the administrative part of it, and I know that's been addressed, but this is not, as people have said, an application. We don't have to go any further. An outside organization is asking us to change our ordinances, which are basically our laws, and we're giving them a platform to do that. It really doesn't make sense. I'm thinking of this as a precedent. Are we going to allow any outside organization to come in and say, hey, we want you to change this over here, we want you to put this other thing over here, and we would just bend over to that? We shouldn't even be giving them a platform to talk. They had their say in the planning commission. They did not at all address the questions that the planning commission asked of them. In fact, if you were at the meeting, the folks from MPF said, vote tonight, we want a decision, vote tonight. And our planning commission said, we can't give you an answer tonight. You have not given us enough information to make a decision. We will give you 60 days to get this information together about the economic impact, about the geotechnical study, thank you, and then come back and share that information. And we waited with bated breath for that report to come in to find out how what they were proposing was going to be better for our township than the existing zoned commercial area. And they said, meh, that seemed like too much work. We just want a decision. We're gonna take our little packet of goodies and we're gonna go to the Board of Supervisors, who we think we might have more sway with. And here we are with on the agenda a item to possibly vote to advertise. These folks turned in F-level work, all right? Nothing. And we're going to give them more time? These folks here, all of the citizens, have taken time out of their evening to talk to you because this shouldn't even be on the agenda. It should be a non-starter, and you're giving them our time and your time. So do not vote to advertise. Do not continue the discussions until they produce something else of interest. And with that, I think it's incredibly important that you do take the time to have the discussion about Ordinance 385 and increase the setbacks at least tonight. Take the first step to advertise a public hearing and move that into motion. There's so many reasons that have already been stated about why this is extremely important to happen tonight. And that is all I have for now until later. Thank you.
Hello, Peter Halbert, 215 Scarborough Drive. And I had also been wondering, well, who benefits from selling this property? And I think the voice dropped a little bit, but it's DeBaldo. And I recognized the name immediately. And this is a family that's been very important to this community. They've owned a lot of real estate. I assume the real estate portfolio has diminished over the years, but they've been good to our community. And this community's been obviously very good for them. I still remember going to Ice Cream World and Chicken World and Sock World with the kids' stuff. And I would hope that if the DeBaldo family or whoever is benefiting from this, they would think about why would they want to squeeze every last little bit out of their real estate portfolio to poison this community. And recognize these are real deaths, real illnesses, including mental health. Mental health does not do as well in the general surrounding areas. And part of it is stress. What's happening to my investment in my home? I'm gonna lose value. I have to worry about my kids, my grandchildren, and the health of the people around me. These are real quality of life issues that don't pay off the township. They pay off people who, maybe benefit from the oil and gas exploitation, but it is at the cost of the community. And again, I think the DeBaldos have been very important to this community. And this community has also enriched and been very important for them. And I would hope that they would maybe consider again whether or not trying to sell this to oil and gas interests is in anybody's interest in this community. So, and I also agree with it. Was it Mr. Slagle's comments in the paper about the priority of health and, what's that? Okay. Mr. Anderson, I apologize. You had made some very poignant comments that were quoted in the newspaper about the importance of the quality of life in this community. And I think that is absolutely not what having more fracking is about. And I do think we should, one, not rezone, so we can't endanger the Emerling site, and immediately call for public advertisement to increase the setbacks so the other site won't be used either, because we have one fracking site. It had a lot of detrimental impact on our neighbors. They were never compensated for how this harmed them.
And there was a township.
And again, I think let's keep this out. We've got one pad, we've done what we have to.
Yeah.
Let's not do any more.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Hello. Jason Owens, 109 Bruno Drive. I'll be pretty darn quick, I think. I agree with most of the comments stated tonight by everybody else here. I don't generally support fracking, though, so not that one. Everybody's made pretty good points, so I'm not going to repeat them. One thing that hasn't been said is the number of peer-reviewed papers that were cited on research for this unconventional oil and gas development and harmful effects on the environment and on people is easily over 2,200 peer-reviewed papers. That's definitely non-trivial, especially considering that the other side has a lot more money than anybody doing research on this side of it, so I just want to take that into consideration. There is absolutely no reason to even talk about this tonight, so I hope you will agree not to talk about it. And we definitely do need to talk about extending the setbacks. I don't even think a mile is good enough, but we need to start somewhere, so at least we can start there. This is important enough that myself, my wife, and my 3 children are here tonight to say no. Don't do this. Think of the health and wellness of the community. Thank you.
Anybody else have a comment before I close the public comments?
I'm Matt Vibrett, 102 Craigmore. Although I have these folders, I didn't prepare anything today. I just wanted to mention, I came to the Planning Commission meetings, and with all the hours I've spent sitting through Planning Commission meetings and Supervisors meetings now, I'm starting to have some concerns about my own mental health. We came to the Planning Commission meetings, and I and many people laid out a lot of really compelling reasons why it makes no sense to rezone this property. I understand they were recorded, they're on YouTube. I would encourage you guys to take a look at those videos because they're really good and compelling reasons not to take any action here. I just wanted to mention also that in researching some of this fracking and unconventional natural gas drilling, one thing that I learned is that being close to one of these sites really increases the likelihood of having a premature birth. And that is a matter that rings really true to my life recently because my wife and I are new to the township. We bought our house in September. And in April, she gave birth to my first daughter, who is or was 8 weeks premature. And we spent almost 4 weeks driving to the hospital every day to spend hours upon hours in the neonatal ICU. And that experience changed me. I don't know if any of you have any experience dealing with something like that. I wish you could see what that is like. The floor is protected by like 3 levels of security, but spending hours upon hours there and having to walk out of the hospital and watch a grandmother sobbing into a couch because they just took her grandchild off of life support, that will change you. Part of the reason I didn't prepare anything today is that I spent the day at the pediatric cardiologist learning that my daughter has a congenital heart defect. So I would just like you to think about the health impacts of what is being proposed. Quite frankly, I'm not even sure what is on the agenda because it looks like it's approval to advertise, but it doesn't sound like there's any need to advertise for anything.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to make a comment? Seeing nobody approach the mic, I'm going to go ahead and close the citizens forum for the agenda items.
We take a 5-minute break.
And I've been requested to take a 5-minute break, so let's take a 5-minute break. It is currently,
Keep it 5 minutes.
huh?
Keep it 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes from now.
Working my way back.
Good, Darren.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting back to order. The next item on the agenda under the development proposals is the request for a zoning map amendment requested by MPF to rezone from the current zoning of office flex commercial to light industrial. Before we get into a discussion up here on the board, is there anybody from MPF that is here that wants to make a comment? Okay.
Good evening. Can you hear me? My name is Jonathan T. Coach. I'm the manager for MPF Management. We are here, our application for zoning map change for parcel from office flex to light industrial. We're here to ask for a vote to advertise and hold a public hearing where all the comments and our presentation and our reasoning can be held as part of the record, and that you can act legislatively on our application. Tonight, we just want to have the chance to hold that hearing and have you guys decide as part of a record with all comments and with our presentation as to why the change is good, or why the change should be allowed at some point after public advertising required by statute.
Thank you.
That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you could just stay there for a couple.
Oh, sure.
I'm sure there might be a few questions.
Yes, I'm sorry if there are questions from the board.
Back on May 22nd, you, not you, but your company stated at the planning commission that you were looking at some other properties, especially the former pallet company, that property there. What are your intentions as far as developing wells within the township?
So MPF Management it's not a drilling company or a land management company. We own oil and gas rights and help manage other oil and gas rights in many areas, some of which in Indiana Township and some of which in Armour Township, adjacent to Indiana Township. Our goal would be to get this changed and convince a gas company to move forward with a conditional use application at some point to develop our rights from this site or from another site in the township. The pallet site and this site both offer the opportunity to develop the portion of oil and gas rights that are either managed or owned by my companies. So that's why we've looked at both of them.
And do you have any tentative agreements with the property owners on either one of the properties?
We are under contract with D&D Supply to purchase parcel 836 E207.
And what about the pallet company?
We're not under any agreements with them.
Have you had conversations with them?
Yes.
Are they open to it?
Yes.
And what other properties?
Those conversations were a little while ago.
Okay.
Can you speak into the microphone? What was that
I
last
feel like I
comment?
am very close. I'll try to talk louder.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
That, yes, we spoke with the owner of the pallet company. They were open to it. That conversation happened before our contract to purchase 836 E207.
And what other properties have you looked at within the township?
Those would be the only two so far.
So,
To develop gas rates that we already own.
Okay, so do you own other property within the township?
In Indiana Township, no.
Okay. Have you looked at is it rural, what's along the estates?
Residential.
Yeah, rural estates, zones.
Those tracks are in the eastern side of the township and would not allow development of the gas rates that we own.
What parts of the township would the right start paying royalties? So where are these lines going from? If we rezone for this particular parcel, where is that gas being extracted from?
So if you look at the Miller pad, and we will demonstrate some of this, although we try to straddle the line between what we're showing in changing zoning and eventual uses. They generally go from southeast and northwest. The wells from Miller go south and east from that site. They could go north and west from that site as well. They develop several square miles from that one location. If they go both north and south, it's 5 or 6 square miles can be developed. They drill out about 20,000 feet now from the location.
What's the relationship between Range Resources and MPF?
We've had talks with them about this, but that would be, we are not affiliated, related to, part of, owned by, I own no stock in Range Resources, I don't work there.
Are you an owner of MPF?
I am.
Okay. How many owners do you guys have?
5.
And so you don't have the reason you're not going out to rural estates is that you don't have the rights out there?
Correct. So because you have to drill in this direction to harvest the gas from the Marcellus Shale or the Utica Shale, you can't drill far enough east and west, only about 4,000 feet east or west from a given location before you go north or south. That's a little bit fungible. The technology increases all the time. I'm not an engineer, and that's just what has been done so far. But those tracks on the map that are on the east side of the township, we could not reach where we would like to go.
Thank you.
One last question. So the Plan Commission asked you for economic analysis to show that it's a benefit to township and its taxpayers to shift from office flux to light industrial. Do you have that study tonight?
I do not have that study tonight.
Has anybody even attempted that study?
We reviewed that request and we intend to produce some information related to it at the public hearing.
Isn't that the very essence, though, of coming and asking us to change our zoning map, is that there should be a positive benefit to us? It's very odd to me that we would even vote to advertise if there's not even a leg to stand on about how this economically benefits all the people in the room. It just seems a little odd.
The economic benefit is tied to the future development and not really to the change. The way they structured the request made it complicated for us to address it.
What is this future development?
A gas well.
Yeah, so it's basically frac.
Yes, the way they
That's
produce
the only
an oil and
economic
gas
benefit
well
from
is
the zone.
fraction, yes.
That's what I thought.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Now, any other comments from any members of the board?
No, I think it's a slam dunk. I would like to make a motion to deny this zoning request and not even to advertise, so.
Can you frame it as I'm making a motion
Pardon me?
to not what? To not advertise the zoning request?
Yes, I would make a motion to not advertise the zoning request, and I would kindly ask anybody, if anybody has interest or potential interest, to recuse themselves, and I don't know whether people do, but I know I don't, so I'm making a motion to not advertise for a public hearing for MPO.
I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to deny the request by MPF management to rezone the area that we're discussing from office flex commercial to light industrial. Are there any more comments before I ask for a vote?
One comment?
Yes, sir.
Just, a yes vote is a vote to not advertise.
Right.
Which is, it was a motion made in the negative. Okay, so if you do not want to advertise, it's a yes vote.
Okay, all right, all, basically, all yeses. To deny, all voting yes to deny the request.
To advertise.
All in favor, say.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries to deny. Okay, motion to pay the bills?
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
Second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Supervisor Hertwig and a second by Supervisor Newman to pay the bills. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Old business?
We have none there.
Okay. Reports, fire companies?
I think they left.
So did the EMS, they had nothing to add.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Chief of Police?
All members given a copy of the report. The only thing I would like to add, excuse me, everyone should be aware that they are doing the Rural Ridge Tunnel. It is getting the work completed. It's going to be closed for another 3-4 weeks, but what we asked them to do, they are doing.
Excellent. Thank you.
Awesome.
Code enforcement?
Nothing further, Mayor.
Thank you. Public Works?
Nothing further to add, Mayor.
Thank you. Engineer?
Always something.
Thank you, Mayor. So everybody has, let me start off this way. Can you believe that the Steelers are already playing? Where did the summer go? So as a result, my engineer's report this evening is in black and gold. I'm not sure if that's a good omen or not, but, and please don't hold me accountable for any, losses here. So anyways, let's start off with the development proposals. We talked about the MPF zoning map amendment a little bit. But the next one is we have received a request for the Saxonburg Boulevard School subdivision plan. Jeff and I met with the developer. What we are requiring is for them to, and they have, to produce a grading plan, which we have reviewed and commented on. The developer's engineer is going to be meeting with the developer to discuss those requirements before we will actually entertain the subdivision plan there. So on the development activity that's going on, the courtyard at Hidden Falls, right now they're still working on the sidewalks, putting in all the ADA ramps and things of that nature. That particular plan is about 98% built out. I did have a discussion with the developer as far as the township's procedure for accepting the public infrastructure in that plan. So that's where that one stands. Hartwood Meadows PRD is again just starting to be built out there. They have started their sidewalks. They are going to proceed with the construction of the third detention basin. And obviously we do have a performance bond in place to make sure that the developer does what he's supposed to do. On the Foxwood Trails, nothing to report there. Same with Blue Run Road, PRD, so nothing really going on there. On the Indiana Trails PRD, this evening later on the agenda, you will see a request from the developer for a planning module, which basically analyzes the availability of sewage at that particular site. They have requested and obtained a demolition permit to demolish the 2 houses on the site, and I believe that's ongoing as we speak. On the old Saxonburg School site, we've already talked about that. The Harmony at Harts Run, Jeff and I did do a drive-by on that, and we have some additional thoughts that we will pursue. On the Ottawa Hills sewer rehab project, nothing to report there. On the MS4 annual report, and I think one of the gentlemen in the audience, when they were referring to me speaking about the attributes of biosolids maybe, I think I was talking about biosolids and not fracking, just for everybody's information. I am a big proponent of biosolids. But anyways, putting that aside, is that as all of you or some of you hopefully are aware, there is a requirement from EPA and DEP with what's called MS4, which has to do with the treatment of stormwater from the facilities throughout the township. There are many owners' requirements that are put on the township, including mitigation for nutrient removals to keep your streams as pristine as we possibly can be. Fortunately, through the foresight of our supervisors, in the annual report that we submitted, God bless you, back in September 25th of 2023, we looked at all of the resources that were out there that we could claim credit for. And we were able to basically mitigate or comply with the nutrient removals of all the streams that are out there. In doing so, it saved the township $504,000. So considerable savings to the township. So I'm happy to report that we have now completed what's called the pollution reduction plan for the township. And in fact, what we anticipated has been now confirmed. There is a 30-day what is it called? Public notice period where anybody can come in and take a look at the MS4 program and see what the township is doing. But we are complying with EPA and DEP's requirements. Again, there is a 30-day requirement. The township has publicly put in the public notice for this. And at the meeting in September, they will be acting hopefully positive for this particular program that we've enacted on all of your behalves. Moving on down to the 2024 paving project, we're currently working with the Public Works Superintendent and the paving contractor on getting that done, as well as the new salt shed renovations. Do I hear a question?
Well, yes.
Okay.
When do we expect to see those trucks rolling down Klein
Trucks rolling down.
for paving project and guardrails?
Oh, my guess, I was hoping it was gonna be this month, but it looks like it's gonna be next month.
Okay.
But it will be before the snow flies.
All right.
Right. So, moving on down to the guide rail project. The guide rail project is done. And what's kind of unique about that is working with the Public Works Superintendent, the original quote that we had received was $57,760. Because the Public Works Superintendent and myself was able to put it out for bid, the actual bid came in at $49,138, so saving to the township. And I'm happy to report that what Larry and I have done is to, now that the final quantities are in, the estimate that I have before the supervisors this evening will save you an additional $2,360.25 with an estimate of $46,777.75. So all moving in the right direction. The desk control project, we did schedule that once. It was delayed because of rain, but we will put that back out. On the township official zoning map, the map that I think everybody sees on the internet was produced by the some time ago by Brady, I think it was. So we've now put it on AutoCAD, and we're adding all the different PRDs that have been approved. So that's going in the right direction. If you've been up on Richland Drive or Highview, or if you go out to Oak Spring, you'll see that People's Natural Gas is cutting my wonderful road. But rest assured that in accordance with the ordinances that your supervisors have passed, they will be paving the crap out of the road. For lack of a better term. That concludes my report.
That conclude your report?
With the word crap, yes.
Thank you. Okay, solicitor?
I'll have a report unless there's any questions.
And I received a request from Cooper Single Library. They would like to be on the agenda for the September 11th meeting to give a brief report on the library. I'd like to carry that early in the agenda. Citizens forum at the beginning, if you don't mind, even though it's not an agenda item. I'd like to have them at the early part of the meeting for the presentation, so I will have them on the agenda for next week.
All right.
And I have nothing else to add this time.
Thank you. you. Anybody here from Parks and Rec? How about the Historical Commission? Supervisors. Let's go with District 1.
Nothing from District 1.
District 3?
Yeah, just a couple quick comments, kind of a job well done, Steve, Chief of Police, at the tunnel. We've had at least one venue down with the new amphitheater in West Deer, minimal disturbance on our end, so appreciate, you and your group and what you do and have been doing for helping us get that tunnel fixed. It's been going on for decades, and we're finally moving the needle, so thank you for that, and thank you for the board for certainly continuing the efforts. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. District 4?
Nothing to report.
District 5?
See some Hidden Falls friends in the house, just letting folks know that we're still working on trying to get a pedestrian crossing from, I don't know if anybody knows where Hidden Falls is, but it's right by Beechwood Farms. I keep you on your toes. Talked to Dan about it, talked to some folks at the county. I think the best way to move forward with that is to have the township take over that development, and then we'll own the roads, and then we can make all those connections. So stay tuned in. Are you still thinking September?
Probably,
that?
yeah,
Okay.
the earliest September.
Stay posted.
I'm sure they'd like us to do that before the snowfall.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yes.
That's all I got.
Okay, and District 2, the only comment I have is that they're out trimming the trees from away from the power lines right now on Indianola Road, and it'll probably be moving along the whole area there. It is causing a little bit of traffic disruption, so be ready for that. All they're doing is trimming the big limbs off the trees that are likely to fall on them and give us power failures. So I just assume they take care of that for us before we get any winds of snow. That's all I have.
Motion to approve the reports.
Second? I'll second. We have a motion by Supervisor Jorgensen, second from myself, to approve the foregoing reports. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Correspondence?
We have none, Mayor.
Okay. So we're off on new business.
Yes, and as the engineer had already covered, I'd like the approval of resolution 2024-04 for the Indiana Trails Sewage Facilities Planning Module.
I recommend approval of resolution 2024-04, Indiana Trails Sewage Facilities Planning Module.
Can you explain what that means? That proposal?
It's the engineer had covered under his report. That simply gives them the ability to analyze the sewage for that sewage facility planning module for the proposed 100 units at the site.
Yeah, when you say they, it's
Correct. I'm sorry. I should.
And Herb, just to clarify, this particular development is still in litigation, so this is just an additional situation. It doesn't suggest if we vote for this, we're not commenting or affecting that case. It's just.
correct. Your vote on this has no impact on the decision relative to the actual underlying. This is an administrative, really a ministerial task of the Board of Supervisors to act on this. So it's really a ministerial act.
Sure.
Do I have a motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion by myself, second by Supervisor Newman, to approve resolution 2024-04 for the Indiana Trails Sewage Facilities Planning. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, Mayor, the next item is it was requested at last month's meeting was to put on the agenda, discuss oil and gas ordinance and setbacks.
And I'm gonna ask Irv, I think it's, part of the reason why we wanted to put it on the agenda for this month, to give us some time to look into it, the legal issues, along with the pending ordinance. And I think it would be good for you to understand as well, because there was a lot of information given out during the citizens forum that just isn't accurate. So, Irv, if you could just kind of go over what the current situation is on setbacks, the legal challenges with it, and pending ordinance.
Sure. First, I'll say that the ordinance that was referenced is ordinance 385, which governs the rules regarding oil and gas development in the township. And it is probably the most stringent of ordinances. It has, lots of requirements in order for an application to be submitted. It's pretty significant that, they have to, anything from truck traffic to what they plan to do at the site, to who they have to contact, all the things that you want and expect. And it's really more stringent than most other ordinances in terms of that. Similarly, the restrictions in there is, again, probably the most, usually, my firm represents a number of communities. It's often held up, hey, can you do what we did? Can you do what you did in Indiana Township is the most stringent ordinance. The issue that's come up, and this ordinance was adopted in 2019, right? So in 2019, it was really unclear, I'm just now talking about the setbacks, right? So the ordinance has the 500-foot setback from the structure and 200 feet from the property line. That's out of, the DEP, out of the state legislation. It's out of the ordinance. So that's where it came from. At the time, there was no real guidance or case law to talk about how that would be interpreted. So at the time, that was felt to be the most stringent rule put in without subjecting the township to liability. So there have been, a couple of recent cases in the last year or two where, again, the courts have not expressly said that you can go with a higher number, but what they have said, at least in two circumstances, that 650 feet, 750 feet were, they didn't, it's not a holding, but they mentioned it and they didn't have any issue with it, and they didn't strike down the ordinance, they didn't address that in any way. And the developers in those cases were really challenging it. So there are cases that talk about the 650 feet and 750 feet. The risk in going beyond that, there are no specific cases that talk about anything beyond that that I've found. And then the risk that goes with it, right, is if a development were turned down strictly on a site distance issue, then you'd be in federal court likely with the developer seeking counsel fees and damages, and the risk to it is pretty substantial. I would guess that in a lawsuit like that was challenging, be over $1 million in fees and costs easy. And while insurance coverage from the township would cover the defense of the case, it would not likely cover opposing counsel fees, costs in the event of a victory. So there's a great risk, to it. And the real, again, watching everybody, I appreciate the passion in it, but the real issue is with the state and where they set the distances. So when you go beyond that, you put the township go beyond that any level, there's a degree of risk. At 650 feet, 750 feet, Commonwealth Court gives you a leg to stand on. Beyond that, you're really, I believe, opening the township to some pretty significant exposure and liability. The other issue I wanted to address is the pending ordinance doctrine, and it's the pending ordinance doctrine's been around for many, many years. It's been modified pretty drastically in the last year by the Commonwealth Court, and I think in just a woman, and I apologize for the name, that read Mr. Smith's letter. I think he was getting to that point in the nuance of the difference between a pending ordinance for a conditional use or a strict zoning request versus that of land development. Our view, the township's view of oil and gas, it's both. It's conditional use and a land development, obviously, because if it would go forward, there'd be significant land development. Things about some of the fees that can be collected over, different rules you can put in place fall under land development. So it would be a land development. So based on that, under the Commonwealth Court's recent decision, it's going to be a land development. There is no pending ordinance doctrine right now. it's, that in itself is a pretty drastic change from, many members of your, interpretation, that that's currently the state of the law of that, so because the applicant will eventually be a land development, no pending ordinance will do it, so in order to have to actually be in effect, have an impact on, a particular application. Are those the issues you wanted me to cover, or Mr. Jorgensen, or something else that am I forgetting something?
No, if you could just go over then the process, because there was a lot of comments made this evening about tonight, let's just, or, advertise the meeting and change the amendment. And it's just like, there were comments tonight made that, why are we even giving these people a platform? Because that's the law. We can't dictate who comes to us to ask us for property uses. We have no say on that. If they come and they follow the process, then this is just part of the process. We just can't say, we don't like you, so therefore you don't have a voice. It doesn't work that way. The same thing with developing ordinances. We just can't click our fingers and say, oops, we've got an ordinance now. There's a process that has to be followed, and if you could go over that a little bit.
Well, and that's right. I mean, we have, just going back to the ordinance that, the issue that was on the agenda earlier regarding the potential for advertising a hearing, right? It was, the application process allows it to go through to the planning commission, which it did. And the planning commission, again, only a recommending body, right? So they make a recommendation to this board. And, they're, again, as you know, the only time this board can take action, right, is at a board meeting, a public board meeting. So there's no way for anybody to know, is the board of supervisors in favor of it, opposed to it? You won't know until the vote happens, right? So it ends up on the agenda, and then just because of the way, we allow for public comment, that's why you have all the public comment before the vote, because no one knows, and then of course it got voted down, right? There is no public hearing on that particular request. On other zoning ordinances, which again, this, there's, a relatively recent change, not that recent anymore, to the Sunshine Act required things that are gonna be really discussed or deliberated to be placed on an agenda, again, so the public knows that, hey, it's gonna be discussed and deliberated. And so on the agenda tonight was this issue regarding the oil and gas ordinance and setbacks, and so that's the time for the public, they can come, they can raise those, questions or, public comments on the item on the agenda, which again, to this point, is just a discussion on the setback issue, right? If the board would say, boy, I think it's a good idea, let's change a portion of the oil and gas ordinance, it's part of the zoning, right? So the process again would be, presumably someone would make a motion to authorize the solicitor or the engineer to work together to create an ordinance that says X, if we know what X is. And then at the next meeting, it would be prepared, it would come to the supervisors, you would see it, then you'd have something to act on, and the item on the agenda would be a motion to advertise that ordinance for a public hearing. And if it would be granted, then it would be circulated to the planning commission and the Allegheny County Planning Commission. Those meetings would take place, and then we would circle back up for the public hearing before the board of supervisors. It would be the process if we go.
And if we move the speed of sound, which we don't, but if we do, it's a 90-day, 120-day process. Best?
It would be we're in August.
Yeah.
Right? So if that authorization took place, it would be an ordinance prepared at the September meeting that would be authorized for advertisement. And because of the rules, and Mr. Kirkland knows, I think it's 45 days to the right, that you'd have to submit to the various agencies. So you'd have to schedule that hearing at least 60 days out from the next meeting, which we're looking at. This is August, it would be in November. It would be in November for the initial hearing.
In between September and November, it would go to the planning commission and kind of work its way internally.
It would go to the planning commission, there would be a public meeting held before our planning, the Indiana Township Planning Commission, where the ordinance that was prepared would be reviewed and considered and discussed. At the same time, Allegheny County's Department of Community and Economic Development would be reviewing it, and they would provide their comments back to the Board of Supervisors, as would the planning commission, because they would have, as long as they would have time to get it in before before the public hearing, and then their recommendation would be on for that. So it's different from tonight in that the hearing would already be scheduled, right, as opposed to a motion. The next meeting would be where a motion to consider advertising the public hearing.
Okay, so right now, the setback law by state statute or ordinance or whatever the state does is it's 500 feet.
500 feet from a structure.
Yep. Now, some townships have challenged that a little bit and pushed the envelope to 650 and 750, and the courts have said, okay.
Well, again, there have been ordinances that have been 650 and 750 that have been in court. They've been noted by the court as not improper.
Okay. But then what's been your experience, because I know your firm deals not just with us, but with a lot of different unconventional wells groups. What are you seeing as far as, are the gas companies adhering to the 500? Are they going beyond that? Is it?
I don't know the gas industry well enough to say what they're all doing.
Yep.
So again, at least in those cases, they were comfortable at 650 or 750. I'm unaware of a challenge, in those ranges. I understand that there may be some communities considering, greater distance. I'm unaware of any where it's been litigated. So that's what I'm kind of.
And the big picture though is, a lot of this stuff is governed by Harrisburg and state
Oil
law.
and gas.
And oil and gas, anything oil and gas related, so as much as I might agree with a lot of the folks who spoke tonight of 2,500 feet, we have to deal with the fact of how that works with the state statute. And we know we have the power to do 500, but I think, Herb, what you're telling everybody is every 100 feet that you keep going, the litigation risks are higher and higher. So, and we're going up against probably big gun long run.
I mean, you're accurate. It's the issue is you have the Oil and Gas Act that, for good, bad, or indifferent, has said that these are the rules for oil, for the unconventional well drilling. So you have to establish why the longer things are different. And again, the risk really is you end up in a federal court lawsuit where it's the tail right. The damages are one thing, but the plaintiff's counsel fees are accountable in those type of situations. And that's really the big number that drives the danger for the township. Just because again, a problem will fall outside of insurance coverage. So
And
it's strictly out of general.
As Paul said, if somebody was eyeing up a spot and ready to submit an application, we don't have the turnaround time. And you're saying that the pending ordinance rule doesn't apply because it's development because of current case law.
It would not apply because it's a land development. And again, that's.
So setbacks, to put it in a nutshell, setbacks are really a state issue.
And I'm already talking to our state rep, got a good state rep, that's my editorial opinion, but, take it for what it's worth. But I do feel like my email address is on the township website. Anybody wants to start organizing, talking to people levels above us, thinking about creative ways to do this that minimizes the litigation risk, but really keep on it. I'm happy to help and lead with anything that you have proposed. I think we need to just keep pushing the state. I mean, our own governor was the Attorney General who was there with the grand jury that found 2,500 feet. That's why everybody's talking about that number. And so, if those folks need some encouragement, I'm happy to do it myself, but I'm also happy to have more people join me, so keep in touch.
Can I ask a quick clarifying question to the solicitor?
Well, actually, public comments are finished, so,
We've got the non-agenda.
You go ahead and ask the question.
Could you clarify, is a public hearing part of the fact-finding process that the township has to go through? Or is it just a discussion forum?
I don't understand your question. It's just, I apologize a lot.
is a public hearing part of the fact-finding process that the township has to go through? And if it is part of it, why wouldn't we use a public hearing to discuss this setback discussion, setback question, be it 650, 750, or 2,500, or 5,000?
Here's why, right? Because your ordinance when it's created, right, when it's drafted, you've seen the ordinances, you're gonna have the whereas clauses, and it's gonna whereas all your particular reasoning as to why whatever the township's doing would be in there, right? So if you had things on, well, we've determined for this reason, this distance makes sense and that has to happen, you know, as part of a study before the authorization to prepare the ordinance would come in. So now you know, that's why that ordinance would look like it was. At the public hearing would be debating the pros and cons of it. In theory, there would be new information that would come forward at that time, where you might see additional changes to that, but then that would trigger a new draft of an ordinance and a new public hearing.
The public hearing is attached to an ordinance that has a specific number, so we're not gonna have a public hearing to just casually discuss setbacks. We need to have an ordinance that says 2,500, 750, whatever we land on. So what I was talking about is maybe we get together, we start talking about what is feasible, what we could do before.
But it is not theoretical, it's about 385 B2N, where we have 3 lines stating 500 feet and 200 feet.
But we
So-
get that from the state. From
Right,
the city.
That's fine.
No, I understand what you're saying, but what I'm suggesting is that creating an ordinance, adopting an ordinance that has the distances beyond what courts have said are okay, puts the township at great risk.
Understand that, but the discussion about it, that's what I think is important. And the discussion to also invite the public to participate in that discussion, and to start that sooner than later.
I mean, we could have an informal public discussion, right? I mean, like, there's, yeah.
That's
what we're doing.
This hearing is, and that's what's being discussed. in
Yeah, but
public.
it doesn't have to wait, talking now versus advertising for it and making it a public forum. That has more weight than me talking with you right now.
No, sir.
Is that correct?
This meeting was advertised, and this agenda was advertised, so
Right.
the item that we're going to discuss, the public gas ordinance pertaining to setbacks, has been advertised. You folks, most of you commented on the setbacks, so we've got the information that you wanted to provide. But I personally, I am not in favor of putting our township in danger of having to pay millions of dollars in court costs in order to change something by 100 or 200 feet. Because that's basically, you know, if we went to like the 2,500 you've been speaking about, that's a different story, but why? That's not gonna float. That violates the state law by such a great amount, no court's gonna approve it.
Well, there are several things in that statement that I don't quite agree with. I don't think going to a higher distance violates the law. The law is open to above, right? We can go higher. If, you know, if a company would then say, hey, you know, 750, that's way too high, I'm gonna take you to court, that's a different question. And the other thing is, again, I'm not asking you to risk a lawsuit. I'm asking you to discuss this in a public forum.
So we've
That doesn't cause any
That's
risk.
what we're doing, we discussed it in a public forum, we've
But-
given you opportunity to speak, you spoke, we're not gonna debate,
Okay.
okay? Sarah, you got a point, you wanna make?
Oh, I just wanted to clarify that if we wanted to move this to a public hearing, we would have to land on a number to a setback that we would want to move forward with changing in the ordinance. And so from what I'm hearing in this discussion, with our solicitor, is that the 2,500 foot setback would be not feasible because it could potentially open us up to a lot of legal issues. So then I guess this conversation would have to steer back to, you know, what are the other legal opinions out there that would, you know, not get us into hot water? Our solicitors come up with this kind of like 650, 700. Ms. Sumrock gave us these legal opinions with all of these case references from another attorney, which I'm very interested in looking and in understanding as well. But to have this be a public hearing, we would need to advise our solicitor to create an ordinance to say, we want you to do X, Y, and Z to change our ordinance. And so we kind of need to figure out what that is.
And that number matters, because whether it's 650 or 2,500, it's still the owner's process that Paul was talking about. So if we wanna hit that number and be smart about that, if you're gonna go through all that to get an extra 150 feet, but if you do more than that, we do have to weigh those risks. But like I said, I'm happy to look at what's going on with the case law, figure out whether that's something we could do, and then this doesn't preclude us from coming up with a number if people wanna talk to me and just making a motion to have a public hearing with a certain number and a certain ordinance. That's possible. But I think what Al and Paul are making point is that this kind of is the best we can do in terms of public forum, like we're talking to you, so we're taking your input in, and we're gonna think about it, we've got it, like, we've got homework, so I can look into this, I can see whether we can do better, and I'm with, like, I have multiple obligations, so like, I really would like to make this as strong as possible, and I do think it's a strong ordinance that we already have, that's why I fought so hard to not change our zoning and to keep that ordinance strong, but if we can make it stronger, I'm with you, but like Al says, you know, there's a risk with that, we have to weigh that.
The gentleman who has experience in this, was wanting to offer something for conversation.
To reiterate that the.
No.
Hold on.
We've
Discussion for us.
We've had opportunity for public comments. We heard a lot on the setbacks. This is our opportunity to discuss it amongst each other. And you're welcome to listen, but you've already had your opportunity for input. Because we could go on and on and on. And at some point, we're just gonna have an agreement to disagree, but that's where we are.
And you
Okay?
will get another bite at the apple, I mean, there's, number 12 is the citizens forum.
No, it's an agenda item.
Does that preclude agenda?
Yes, it does.
Oh, okay. I got to talk to my solicitor.
Anyway, one thing I want to point out is that this letter, he doesn't say a number that he thinks is valid. And again, he's careful, right? He says, it could be this. He said some municipalities thought different number. He didn't come forward and say, hey, here's a safe number. And you'll read it.
We need help from Harrisburg. Write your governor, write your state rep if you want 2,500.
Okay. In that case, do we want to make any kind of motion, or do we just?
No, it's just a discussion.
It's a discussion.
It's just a discussion, so I think we leave it stand where it is right now. You really have to look very carefully at doing anything that passes what state law is, because that opens up real legal can of worms that could cost the township a lot of money. Now, part of our job is to make sure that the money that we receive from taxes and our other resources is spent wisely, so that the citizens of the township can drive on good roads and can play in parks and so forth. We cannot frivolously take an action that we know is going to cost us a lot of money in legal fees and so forth without having some sort of foundation. And right now, I don't think that we have. First of all, nobody here has mentioned a number that they would want to look at. So that's something that we'd have to, and then if we're going to change the ordinance, what's required is the board, as has been stated before, for the board has to authorize our attorney to write a new section for that ordinance pertaining to setbacks. We have to review it. then it goes to the state, and then it goes to the planning commission, then it goes to a public hearing, and then we finally vote on it. So before we vote on it, it's really 90, 180 days down the road. It just doesn't seem like we need to enter an endeavor like that to just gain 100 feet. I think we should look into what are the thoughts of our local legislators in the State House and the Senate, and see what their opinions are on this kind of thing. And if they can do something at their level, that would open the field for us. But, you know, once we start to try to buck the wind, we're liable to end up suffering the consequences, and I really don't want to put us in that position.
I agree, and I think we're very fortunate we have so many educated and understanding people, folks who work in that industry, that can get on board and help with this conversation that we're no longer having, but will have again.
Okay.
Mayor, the next item on the agenda is possible approval of Penline Services final estimate for the Guyboro project. It's covered by the engineer. That's the final estimate, the amount of $46,777.75.
I'll make a motion to approve the Penline Services final estimate for the Guyboro project.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Motion by Supervisor Jorgensen, second by Supervisor Crowley, to approve the Penline Services final estimate for the guardrail project. Any comments, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And that's all we have for this evening, Mayor.
Thank you. The next item is citizens forum for non-agenda items. Is there anybody that would like to address the board?
That's me, sorry. Brandis Miller, 2022 Olive Tree Drive. Members of our HOA board reached out to several individuals in the township on July 26th, August 1st, and August 5th, asking for the status of the bond and what's going on at Richmond Estates. All of those emails went unresponded to, so I'm just looking for an update for the residents of our neighborhood.
Jeff?
So, once the public infrastructure has been accepted by the township, there is no need for performance bonds at this point. The contractor, once the performance bond is released, what is put in its place is a maintenance bond. The contractor has put in place 2 maintenance bonds, one for the paving system, and one for the roadway, and one for the storm sewers and those other facilities. So there still is 2 pots of money, if you want to call it that, and those will be in place for 18 months. You'll see the durations of each one.
18 months is correct.
Well, yeah, 18 months from when we accepted them, but there's 2 different, that's why there's 2 different tiers. There's one, the street system we accepted before we did the other. So there's 2 tiers there, but the solicitor is correct, it's 18 months from when we accepted them.
And so when do the other items like the walking trail, the common area, the pile of shale leading to detention basin 2, the debris left over from the sinkhole in detention basin 1, and all of the outstanding utility issues like the gas poles that are sticking up, the Verizon cables that are going through people's yards, the low sewage access, and the double strip down by the townhomes that can't even be planted around because it's so low relative to the sidewalk.
So if you would so I'm hearing about these for the first time.
You're not there on the final matters list.
So if you would make me a list of what you just described and get it to me, I'll take a look at it.
And is there a reason why the developer hasn't yet been held accountable to do all the items on the final matters list?
Just to the best of my knowledge, they've been done.
And you had said that you'd be willing, whenever you were going through the process of like kind of checking that off, to involve the HOA board at Richmond Estates in that process. But no one was really consulted or reached out to, or we weren't really given the opportunity. Can you?
I did come out, and we did make an attempt to meet with you folks.
Oh, no one reached out to me?
Just, you know, I've been out there at least 24 times.
That's fine. No one reached out to me about
Okay, well,
meeting
then
with our board.
Okay, well, again, I work for the township. But,
So what was the effort that was
Give me the
made?
list, and I'll take a look at it.
Okay. Same
Thanks.
story 3 years later, thanks all.
Any other comments on non-agenda items?
I'm back, Andreas Meifer, 121 Black Oak Drive. I would like to use my time to discuss a process that several of you have already been informed of, and that is the two-step application process for oil and gas development.
Can we just pause that for a minute? And Herb, you wanna?
Yeah, are you referring, I mean, I've seen.
I forwarded it on.
I don't know what you call it, a circular prepared by the environmental review.
Yep.
I can't.
Is that what you're gonna talk about?
Yes, but I have different information.
Well, I will say first, that our ordinance has, our ordinance has the two-step process, right? It's, I'm not gonna say it was invented by Indiana, it was the Indiana two-step, but, it was, the Indiana two-step process is in existence. And all of the things that are set forth in the EIP things in terms of what should be in the application are covered in the ordinance already, with the exception of items that we've covered in other areas, such as the processing plants and compressor stations. So, as near as I can tell, the only other issue would be the timing of it and who would do it, and, as, under the rules for conditional use approval and land development approval, under the municipality's planning code, there are timelines in place. We have to meet those timelines, otherwise it's deemed approved, right? So the risk is, if you have an application and you take a long time to determine if it's complete, more so than the day that you really have to do that, then the clock's not stopped, right? It doesn't, there's no additional time created. So again, I've looked at that circular, I believe our ordinance covers it, and I'm happy, but again, I just want to get out in front of that in case how some of the things you were talking about, but certainly other things.
And I think not only is it covered, but it exceeds it in a number of areas.
Yeah, it's a very, it's a stringent ordinance. All those requirements that are set forth by the EIP are in there.
Okay, so one of the things that I believe we as a township are not executing or using out of this two-step process is to not accept an application if it is not complete. As a township, we have the opportunity, the right to decline or not accept an application if it's not complete. In our oil and gas ordinance, we have 21 items that an applicant has to submit so that it can be considered. We don't wait for them to submit this. We give them back, your application is accepted. That is the critical step that I believe should be changed.
But sir, that's not accurate. I mean, what you're saying, I agree with you, right? I mean, you're right, that's what it should be, and that's what the ordinance says. It lists all the things that are required to be in the application.
Right.
And if the application were not complete, it would not be accepted. We've not had there's been no application for an unconventional gas well in Indiana Township since this ordinance has been adopted. So there's not a situation where something's been submitted that was incomplete, that was determined to be complete. That hasn't happened. So that's, that's already in here, and you're right. And not only, I'll go further, that you have an obligation as a township to ensure that it's complete.
Right.
And that includes the filing fee and everything else.
What I believe is happening is we accept an application, not thoroughly vetting the application and saying, hey, the hydrologic study is not submitted, right? So at that point, when we discover that, we should not accept the application, because we are chasing after the applicant to submit documentation, right? They give you a one-page, hey, I'm applying to drill an oil well.
That's not correct.
That's not, that has never happened.
But you
An
can't-
application for a zoning, just to be clear, like an application for a zoning amendment is not an application for, under this ordinance. Right, so in order to, if you've seen the ordinance, right, it has all those criteria in there, and you're correct, right? again, so we, for example, they submit a hydrological study. We, at that point, the township wouldn't evaluate it, right? They wouldn't look at it and say, oh, is it a good study, a bad study? Would our engineer get into it? He wouldn't. But you'd have to check the box to say, yes, there's a hydrological study. And if there wasn't, then the application gets sent back to your applicant. You're being denied, your application's not complete, please submit. And you have to identify it, but please submit the following documents. You couldn't like do one at a time. You'd have to list, you're missing the following blank number of items. So that's what would happen. I agree with you. That's correct.
The crux of the point is, when do we accept an application?
When it's complete.
So at that point, when it's accepted, the time clock starts, right?
Yes.
Within 60 days, you have to have a public hearing.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, in 2016, we did not do that.
This
We
ordinance
accept-
this ordinance was not in place in 2016.
Correct, there was an ordinance, it was 502 in 368, right? So section 502 in 368.
That's why we amended the ordinance.
And so we changed the ordinance. However, my point is, let's give the township time to review completeness and not accept any application, right? And if the applicant takes half a year to submit a document that's on the list of 21 items, we're not moving forward with it, we're not accepting it, right?
You're right. I mean, you're not saying anything that's not right. It's just, once it's, you can't take an application, sit on it for 20 days.
No.
And then get around to telling them
Okay,
what it is. So, but as far as everything else you say, that's what's in here. I agree. If it's not complete, that's the initial, that's for every application, but certainly.
Okay, I think, we don't have to discuss it further, but I would like to share these documents with you. It's kind of a turnkey process, and I have a copy for all of you. Please review it. Well,
Well, we haven't had one come in yet, is what Irv was saying, under our ordinance, right?
Right. Well, not an oil.
So that's what this is.
Yeah, that's what this is. Oil.
Thank you.
one for the record.
And when an application comes in, that's you, Jeff, right? They come to your office?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm wondering if
comments?
it is clear to an applicant.
Sir, you're way out of time.
Okay, good.
Do you need my name again?
Yes.
Nettie Owens, 109 Bruno Drive. I feel like what's missing in Andreas's statement is what he's asking for is basically an addition of one sentence that says, okay, we have received the application, but it is not accepted until it's complete. And it's just simply an additional sentence that may not yet exist
So read
in
this out.
communication.
Read our sound.
Okay, I think that, I'm just saying, like, I feel like that is the part that maybe,
So-
it's
so-
all in the paperwork, but I only have a couple minutes, so. There is, for everybody in the room and for our supervisors, there's a petition that's already being circulated to increase the setbacks at the state level. So if you have a desire to have these increased, I would encourage you to access that petition. I'll put it up on the Citizen Communication for Indiana Township on Facebook and send it out, and sign it. If this is something that's important to you, that would be a really important step to take. I will let you know that we had 7 people watching almost the entire time on live stream, 67 people in the rooms, more than 10% of the people who were in attendance were coming in virtually, and I would request our Board of Supervisors to please provide this accommodation. A number of the people who were here have medical issues that they could not come in person. It has been requested multiple times over the last several months, and I will continue to request it until our township provides this reasonable accommodation for people who attend these public meetings. Just to let you know, Mr. Slagle found at least $5,000 in savings that could be used to provide this. It's in his report, you can go back. I know there was a concern about paying for it, no problem. We have extra money, thank you, Mr. Slagle, for that. And that is all I have to, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any further comments?
I'm sorry, I just need a name. I couldn't find it in his, manual. I wrote it down as Jonathan T. Cup.
T-Coach.
T-Coach.
I did write, look. I did write T-Coach, but I thought T-Cup was funny. I thought you guys let him off way too early. Why didn't you ask him? He flat out lied. He flat out lied, or Mr. Mike, his attorney, was lying.
His request was denied. What more do you
No,
want
no,
us to do?
no, you didn't ask
Look,
him.
just- we need to
He
pass.
said, you asked him, did he ask the owner of the power company? He said no. The last meeting I was at, they had permission, that was their alternate move. Do you believe that John Gasnovi, who already has an Indianola industrial park put up, is gonna turn down that guy? You should have asked him. Who's the name of the power company? He'd probably deny knowing. But one of the two was lying. Either his attorney, Mr. Mike, whatever his last name, or he is.
This is the time for non-agenda items.
Well, that's not agenda.
It was covered.
Yeah, it's already covered.
It's already covered.
I don't think you covered it adequately. I'm sorry.
Any further comments?
Linda Massarelli, 5 Pine Creek Drive. The Ocel property is being cleared, that's legal, I understand that. I don't agree that the upper driveway, which was only to be used for emergencies, we were told it would be gated or blocked off only for emergency vehicles. It's being used for construction vehicles, workers. They had a big plywood sign out there, homemade sign that said exit, entrance, construction. They took that down. There are orange cones out on the road. It's extremely dangerous. That should not be allowed. We were told that was emergencies only. Those construction people could be there for 2 years. Tell them to build a road, tell them to use the lower driveway. They're the construction people.
It's emergency only after it's developed, it's not developed. Right.
But there are people using that driveway.
And they have the right to use that. They have that right.
Then it's not dangerous, is what you're saying.
No, that's not what he said.
That's what I'm saying.
What
They
he,
have the right to use it.
there is an existing access or entrance to that.
But there are other existing.
For the house. When they bought the property, that access goes along with that.
But there is another driveway that goes directly to that house.
But it's the owner's option to pick which one he wants to use. It's not for the township to sit there and dictate how you enter and exit your property.
But shouldn't you go out there and look at that and know that big construction vehicles coming in and out of there are dangerous?
No, it is not my responsibility.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Any further comments?
Donna Ludwig, 32 Oakville Drive. I live on the same plan as Linda, and indeed, that is a dangerous intersection. You cannot see it. We came home from vacation, and there were cones lying in the road, and it was dusk. And it's dangerous. In I guess next week, whenever school starts, there are going to be school buses there. School buses, construction vehicles. When they have the approved road they did that January safety study. Why don't they use that road?
Because right now, the developer's agreement has not been executed. The plan has not been formalized by the township. So none of that has been done at this point. What the applicant has merely done at this point is come in and ask for a demolition permit to demolish those 2 houses. That is the extent of his authorization.
It's cleared. Everything's cleared in there. They're starting to cut down the trees, so those properties are long gone. The houses are long gone. Will they, well, I guess they'll do that, but the school board should be aware that there's a bus stop there, and there are construction vehicles in and out on that blind area. So It's unsafe. There have been near fatal accidents, including my husband, so a few years ago. The second thing is, I just have a question. So, and I guess this is for Mr. Furman. Given that, my question would be, is not disclosing a financial benefit to something you're voting on, does that rise to the level of malfeasance?
For me to give an opinion on something, I don't know all the facts of any particular situation.
Okay.
I don't have enough information to give intelligent advice on any of this, I don't have full information on anything.
Okay, I think we can provide you with a copy. Somebody had a copy. I'm sure we can give you a copy of that. So thank you so much.
Donna, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Because I know you and Linda contacted me about that road up there by
Yeah.
Oak Knoll. How often are people pulling in and out of there? 'Cause I went and staked it out, I parked at the church.
Yeah.
Well, Pine Creek Church.
It has gotten less now that they've gotten.
I didn't see anybody coming back and forth for about 20 minutes, but that's not a long stake out.
Initially, it was constant.
Okay.
This week, the end of last week and this week, it's slowed down. There are some of the big construction vehicles back there, and I don't know what their plans are since the, big bulldozers or whatever they are still there.
Keep an eye on it.
Oh, well, I mean, we have to, we pull out onto that road.
You gotta pull it up there.
Yeah,
Keep
it's
me in touch.
dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Motion to approve? Or to this? Motion to, adjourn, that's the word, yeah.
Go to bed.
Adjourn, go to bed, exactly.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Thanks,
Motion
Darren.
carries. Thank you. Thanks, Darren.
Second.
All right, have a good evening.
Okay,
I think
Darren.
I seconded it. I'll second it. Yeah.